In today's Farm Report, the Senate failed to allow debate on a bill last week that would have required the EPA to rework the Clean Water Rule, also known as the Waters of the United States. AgriPulse's Cindy Zimmerman has more.
The Senate failed to allow debate Tuesday on a bill that would have required EPA to rework the controversial Clean Water Rule, known as Waters of the U.S., or WOTUS. The bill, sponsored by Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming, had bipartisan support, and Democrat Senator Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota was one of many speaking in favor who had posters showing how their states would be impacted by the WOTUS rule.
Not voting to proceed on this issue is the wrong path forward. And so I would urge my colleagues to open up the debate and let's talk about this map, not the Charles River and not the Cuyahoga River, because I will concede today that they are navigable water. But I want to know, in what world is this navigable water of the United States? In what world should EPA have jurisdiction over this pond? And in what world, when you're the farmer who owns it, do you think you have any certainty as we move forward?
Heitkamp's Republican counterpart in North Dakota, John Hoeven, also gave an impassioned floor speech against the WOTUS rule.
America's farmers, ranchers, and entrepreneurs go to work every day to build a stronger nation. Thanks to these hardworking men and women, we live in a country where there is affordable food at the grocery store and where a dynamic private sector offers Americans the opportunity to achieve a brighter future. The federal government should be doing all that it can to empower those who grow our food and create jobs. Yet instead, regulators are stifling growth with burdensome regulation that generates cost and uncertainty.
After failing to invoke cloture on that bill, the Senate did vote to allow debate on a resolution of disapproval sponsored by Iowa Senator Joni Ernst that would scrap the WOTUS rule entirely.
My legislation is the necessary next step in pushing back against this blatant power grab by the EPA. We will send this to the president, where he will be forced to decide between the livelihood of our rural communities nationwide and his unchecked federal agency.
President Obama has already said he will veto any bill passed by Congress that makes changes in the water rule, which has already been ruled against in the court. Reporting for AgriPulse, I'm Cindy Zimmerman.
5 major U.S. watersheds are the focus of landscape-level conservation efforts to protect and improve water quality, efforts led by USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service. One of those is the Mississippi River Basin Healthy Watersheds Initiative. And Tuesday, funding for over 70 new and existing projects along the river basin was announced for the new fiscal year, funding totaling $30 million. As NRCS Chief Jason Weller pointed out 2 years ago,
we've worked collaboratively with our partners at the state and local level, and we're trying to make targeted, focused investments using private land's voluntary conservation to help farmers and ranchers better manage their natural resources.
Partnerships and investments through NRCS offerings like the Environmental Quality Incentives Program that over the last 6 years of the initiative have resulted in over 600 partners and 5,000 individual farmers working together to make conservation improvements on over 1 million acres of land in the Mississippi River Basin. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
The Senate failed to pass a bill that would force the EPA to rewrite its Waters of the United States rule, but did pass a joint resolution disapproving of the rule. However, President Obama has indicated that he would veto such a measure if it was sent to his desk. AgriPulse's Cindy Zimmerman has more.
Most agricultural organizations are pleased with the Senate action this week to pass a resolution disapproving of EPA's Waters of the U.S., or WOTUS rule. Colin Woodall with the National Cattlemen's Beef Association says even if it ultimately means nothing, it was good to see which senators are opposed to the rule.
We did see bipartisan Senate action, so both Republicans and Democrats worked to pass the joint resolution number 22, which was sponsored by Senator Joni Ernst, Republican from Iowa, which uses the Congressional Review Act to disapprove the Waters of the United States rule. It is a good sign that we have continued support, again, bipartisan support in the Senate to push back against the administration. Now the House has to consider this, and then it will ultimately go to the president. Unfortunately, however, we do know that the president is going to veto this, so we will have to try to find some other actions to kill the Waters of the United States rule, but this was still a step in the right direction just to show the overall support we have from the members of the Senate.
Woodall says the overwhelming support for the rule by Democrats and President Obama is difficult to believe.
That it's hard to imagine that the Democrats in the Senate, and especially the president, could ignore the outrage from so many facets of our economy. This is not just an agriculture issue. We have the home builders, we have the mining association, we have counties, we have municipalities. Just about everybody who uses and manages land has shown their unhappiness with this rule and the fact that they are against it. So I think this really shows where a political agenda is definitely trumping what's right for water quality and definitely what's right for those of us who use and manage the land.
Don Parrish with the American Farm Bureau Federation thinks it's hard to believe any senator would support WOTUS given that it's already lost legal challenges.
We now have two courts, one at the district level, one at the circuit court level, that says these rules are likely illegal. And why Congress would choose to uphold a rule, or the president would choose to uphold a rule that the courts have already said are likely illegal, is beyond me.
Because of those rulings, implementation of WOTUS has been put on hold, and there are other lawsuits yet to be heard, but it may be years yet before a final decision is made. Reporting for AgriPulse, I'm Cindy Zimmerman.
If you grow crops in a field or orchard, or just a backyard garden, you may have heard of integrated pest management. As Don Weber of USDA's Agricultural Research Service notes, developing IPM systems to control crop-threatening pests can be conducted on many levels. Scientifically, this requires study of both behavioral approaches and biocontrols in specific realms such as location, plants, and pests.
How do we approach this pest problem with a number of tactics, some which may not pan out, but we really want to look into them because they're promising, others which may be our main approach to helping out growers and gardeners with these invasive pests that are posing a pretty big problem.
Weber adds that on the ground level, much of IPM is based on common sense approaches to pest control. This requires grower awareness of potential threats, their ability to monitor such threats, and how best to treat pests using one strategy or several. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.